345. All right.
Happy birthday, Jim.
What? It isn't my birthday.
It's a year to the day since you did your presentation.
Is it? Oh. What do you have, Sally? 347?
I just noticed on my wall chart. Mine's 345 with extra 5.
Cool. A blessed presentation. I got into the right attitude of mind. I laid the groundwork. I planned the whole thing. And halfway through the presentation, the screen rolled up. Oh, well, you can't plan for everything.
How many times have you given that presentation now?
4 versions of it, and I give the screen a good tug first.
Who's that one for?
Alec.
Alec's going to need a lot of help before he does his C11 presentation to the agents.
Well, he's done presentations before, hasn't he?
Well, he's prepared them, but I'm not sure he's ever actually done a whole one on his own. Bill Lyons didn't let him get in much practice in his old job. He liked the sound of his own voice, Bill Lyons did. 10 past.
Well, maybe you're a bit like Alec. You know how to prepare a presentation, set objectives, introduce, develop, conclude. But what you don't know is how to deal with an audience, interruptions, objections, questions.
Jim?
How to... Yes, coming. I'll stop talking to myself.
You keep pulling that thing.
It's a little tip I picked up from watching Jim Arlington give a presentation.
Oh, don't look so worried. Yours isn't till next Thursday.
Awfully late.
Alec!
Sorry, I'm a bit preoccupied.
A bit preoccupied.
As far as I see it, I mean, that could work in our favour.
Oh, am I late?
No, not at all.
Hello, Alec.
Morning.
Oh, it's hot chocolate for you, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
With sugar.
Thanks.
Oh, and there's my trannies. You might get some ideas.
Oh.
Now, I forgot to say, Sally, when you and I do the presentation to the board, there'll be 1 or 2 there who know very little about our project.
Difficult. We don't want to bore the others with repetition.
Yeah, it's got to do it, though.
We'll just have to say, as most of you probably know, and then say it all again.
Now, there's a couple of real Euro fans. Now, I want to mention the European link-up early on. Show them the carrot as soon as I can. I'm sorry, Alec, this isn't much to do with you.
No, please, I'm learning all I can. Carrot?
Carrots. What's in it for them?
Oh. And what's the list you're working from?
Oh, this tells me who's going to be there.
Well, why do you need that?
Well, every clue helps. And knowing my audience is one of them.
Oh, right.
So, I'll bring them up to date on the project launch, and then introduce you.
After you've summarised, then I'll tackle the staff problems. There shouldn't be any overlaps.
Don't steal one another's thunder.
Now, you were going to take us through your presentation.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, Alec.
345. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to welcome you all here today, especially those of you who've come a long way. Yeah, well, apart from that, I suppose it was all right.
345, Jim?
No, thanks. Must hurry.
It'll be perfectly all right when you've got the slides sorted out. You've too many, really.
Well, it's been perfectly all right rehearsing it to you two, but not to a proper audience. Those sales agents are a pretty tough lot. It's a pity I can't watch you two talking to the board.
I'll tell you what happens after. Now, what number's hot chocolate?
607 with extra 7. Twice. I need building up.
Yes.
So now I'm going to hand you over to Jim Arlington. Jim?
Morning, everybody. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. What the two of us intend to do this morning is to bring you up to date on the C11 project and seek board approval, that's your approval, for the changes that will have to be made to allow us to go into full production. Can I help, Mr. Ogilvy?
Yes, I was looking for the sales projections.
Oh, well, they're in Appendix A, the blue section. I'll take you through them in a moment. They have to be read, of course, with the European link up in mind.
Ogilvy was searching through his papers. Not obviously. Jim spotted him.
How did he spot him?
Jim's always on the lookout for inattention.
Yeah, but how?
Well, you have to make eye contact, not just with the cheerful faces. When it's not there, you have to take steps to get it back again.
Yes, but I'm going to be talking to a whole room full.
Well, you'll need to use more energy and more voice in a larger room, but even with 10, 15 people, you'll still have eye contact. Each one of them has to feel you're talking to them personally.
Did Jim tell them when they could ask questions? It's just that Bill Lyons always said that was very important. At the end, 3 questions only, he used to say.
Well, he was right. You need to let them know what the rules are. But you don't tell the board when they can ask questions. They do it all the time.
I've got a question I want to ask straight away.
Yes, Mr. Tyndall.
Why did it all take so long?
He asked why it had taken so long.
Yes.
What a terrible question to get thrown at you. I mean, Jim had hardly started.
But you can't ignore things just because they're awkward. You've got to reply or you're not communicating. But you can give yourself a few moments of thinking time by repeating the question.
Why has it taken so long? That's a good question. I mean, the short answer is difficulties with patents. I'll be delighted to give you a full account later, Mr. Tyndall, when we have a coffee. 2 things before I bring you up to date on the launch itself.
So what exactly was the problem with the patents?
I've said I'd give Mr. Tyndall a detailed account of the delays, Mr. Chairman.
Look, Brian, now we'll never get through.
That is, we found out in the past week that ITF are 5 months behind us.
So he got the chair onto his side.
Our chairman wanted Jim to have a clear run. Oh, and Jim had his finger on his notes on the place where he'd left off, so he picked up smoothly. He wasn't going to waste their time, even if Tyndall was.
But it sounds as though Tyndall was pretty upset that the C11 didn't come under his division.
He was. He took it personally. Jim was determined not to take anything Tyndall said personally.
Which never showed up in the research because, of course, we were asking the wrong groups of people.
Yes, you were. I reckon this research got off on the wrong foot. It should have gone straight to the nub. And the nub of this whole business...
Tyndall wasn't asking a question. He was making a speech. Jim let him go on for a bit. Then...
Really right.
What is your question, Mr. Tyndall?
When was this research?
Well, we had the first results in February, from which we learned a great deal. And then, when we got the second lot of results, everything fell into place. The design, the specification, the likely demand, and the pricing problem. Well, it was like watching a champion snooker player clear the table. It's brown, blue, pink, and finally black. Now, all this is going to mean changes.
So how are you going to sell this to the staff?
Well, since it's Sally's job, I think convincingly is the answer. She'll tell you what she plans in a moment, but if I can summarize before I hand over to her. The C11 requires investment in 3 key areas.
Oh, if only I'd been there.
So Jim summarised what he'd said. Oh, and he included a phrase the chairman had used about waiting for the green flag. That was a bit of positive feedback. Then he introduced my topic and handed over.
I'll have no one to hand over to. I'm on my own.
Up there, yes, but Jim or I could be in the audience. You could call on us for a word.
Jim could talk about the specifications.
If he can come.
Great. So, how did you do with the board? Jim always says that you always have the audiences eating out of the palm of your hand.
Don't believe a word he says. I shall be talking to various groups of staff starting this afternoon. Why don't you come and watch?
I will.
You know why Jim's a good talker? Because he's such a good listener, that's why. Questions, interruptions, heckles, he uses them.
Well, that was the joke about Bill Lyons.
What was?
Well, being a good listener. When he retired, we bought him a CD player and all the symphonies of Mozart and Beethoven. And somebody said, they'll be completely useless. He's never listened to anyone in his entire life. Why should he start now?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to drag you away from your work. Now, you won't be wondering why we're here this afternoon. You know some of what I'm going to say. You've heard all the rumours about the C11. You need to know the facts.
You. It's all about you. She's seeing it from their point of view.
It's going ahead then, is it?
Yes, it's going ahead, and that's going to involve some changes. And you know as well as I do that where there's changes, there's good news and there's bad news. So, like they say in the joke, which would you like to hear first? Good news. Whichever you prefer.
The bad.
Right, I'll tell you the bad first. Only one condition. You'll let me tell you the good as well before you start asking me questions. Right? The bad news, that a new production line and new distribution plans will mean some shift changes. You guessed that several months ago. And the scale of the whole operation means a new distribution centre will have to be built, unfortunately using the company football ground.
Why not the tennis courts? I mean, nobody needs tennis.
Except during Wimbledon.
Yeah. I mean, we've played football there for the last 20 years.
You said you'd let me finish. The good news for your division is that there'll be new jobs. And the good news for those of us who've already got jobs is that there'll be more money available. Productivity bonuses, new night shift allowances. But most important of all, the C11 means job security for us. It's the nearest thing to a job guarantee we can have. Alec, how long will the C11 go on selling?
Well, we're expecting to develop the C12 and the C13, and they should have a life of 15 to 20 years.
Thank you. Now,
Well, why not the tennis courts? I mean, football is more popular.
the tennis courts weren't big enough.
Well, what are we supposed to do? We've still got fixtures to play.
We understand that. We've spoken to the council and they've agreed to mark out an extra pitch at Linney Park.
Linney Park? What? It's a cabbage patch.
It'll suit the way you play them, won't it?
Well, you know what you're talking about, Tracy.
You won't play hard as well up at Linney.
I'm sorry you're going to be inconvenienced one day a week. Some of the people in this room are going to be inconvenienced every day by the changing shifts. Now, I'll be meeting the social club members later. Now, are there any other questions?
Linney Park's got a slope.
Well, at least you've got Linney Park.
Shut up about football. Audrey. How are you going to change this?
Audrey wants to know how the shifts are going to be changed. Well, I can tell you.
Well, I was pretty impressed with the way you handled that.
Oh, I'm sorry I made you jump, calling on you like that.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's always useful pulling in someone sympathetic, but I should have warned you.
Yes, but Linney Park isn't all that good a pitch, you know. They have got a point.
Yes, but you mustn't let one group dominate. And if I hadn't got the others to tell them to be quiet, they'd have gone on forever.
Yeah,
Linney Park was something positive we've done. I was more concerned about the shift workers.
I understand the shift changes, but what about the job security?
I can't tell you exactly, Audrey, but it's safer now with the C11 than it's ever been.
Well, what about those of us that can't work the night shift?
I intend to discuss each person's circumstances with them individually.
But look, I've got to pick my kid up from school. If I work the night shift, I won't be back on time.
You and I can sort out Michael's school, Peter. A room full of people's not the time. Now, any other points?
Oh, Bob!
Have you been to Sherwood Road?
Once, yes.
They can be unresponsive. I've got to get them involved and then use that involvement to carry them with me. You've got to energise any audience, Alec. You know, put on a bit of a performance.
Yes, that's it, isn't it? Filling the space with your energy. Taking the audience with you.
What do you want? Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, or French tap water? Alec?
9:05. 10 minutes. No, on second thoughts, nothing for me. I don't want to have to nip out halfway through. I don't even want the thought in the corner of my mind that I might have to nip out halfway through.
You wouldn't have made it to halfway. 9:05 is oxtail soup with milk and sugar.
So, what did Alec learn? Well, he learned to put himself in his audience's shoes, to see it from their point of view, their need to see and hear and understand and ask. And now, his turn's come.
If I was selling, this is the one I'd want to be selling. If I was buying, this is the one I'd want to be buying. But I'm not buying or selling. I'm in the office, sorting out the new and better sales terms, juggling all the variables, except one. The C11 is going to be a seller for years.
He's looking at each of them. He isn't just staring at the back wall. He's relating to them and showing them just how enthusiastic he is. And when it comes to his slides, he's going to give them time to see what he has to show.
Well, it's time I showed you the thing itself. That's it. I'll give you a moment to look at it. Although we agreed no questions until the end, I can hardly resist asking a question myself at this point. You're probably wondering the same thing. Why did we choose this configuration? Well, the answer's simple, really.
Alec gave them time to look at the screen. Then he asked the question he knew they would be asking. He'd learnt to put himself in their place. Yeah, he's doing pretty well.
The small print of the service contract is much as it always was. You can find a highlighted copy in the folder we'll give you when I've finished.
I don't see why we have to have a new one at all. In fact,
The old service contract simply isn't flexible enough.
Not the service contract. I don't see why we need to have this new C11.
Oh.
He got that wrong. Always let the questioner finish. Don't jump the gun.
What's wrong with the current one?
You want to know what's wrong with the current one?
Yeah.
Well, I know there's a few people here who would enjoy telling you at length what's wrong with it.
Yes,
yeah, we could tell you. This thing's just been foisted on us.
Well, those from the pilot group would say that it hasn't been foisted on them at all, that they're fed up of being consulted and questioned.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. Well, it's certainly come out of the blue.
Because some secrecy was necessary. But it's that secrecy that has put the C11 months ahead of its rivals. Now, you like the product, you like the price, and I know you like the commission rates. Together, we're onto a good thing. Because the C11 isn't just designed to be user-friendly, it's designed to be seller-friendly.
Seller-friendly. It's a good phrase. It's memorable. Good old Alec. And using his allies in the room to help quiet the interrupter. Well, there's only one thing left.
Questions? Any questions?
Alex chose to have questions at the end. You might choose to have questions at fixed points or throughout, as we had to do with the board. What you say throws up constant questions in the minds of your listeners. Now, to foresee those questions, to deal effectively with an audience, you have to put yourself in their shoes.
If there are no more questions, we've come to the end. Just to summarize then.
Re-establish the main theme. Stress the positive responses you've had and end on the key points you want your audience to retain. The last thing we say is what is remembered. Good luck. The audience is yours now. Fell into place. The design, the specification, the likely demand, and the pricing problem. Well, it was like watching a champion snooker player clear the table. It's brown, blue, pink, and finally black. Now, all this is going to mean changes.
So how are you going to sell this to the staff?
Well, since it's Sally's job, I think convincingly is the answer. She'll tell you what she plans in a moment, but if I can summarize before I hand over to her. The C11 requires investment in 3 key areas.
The small print of the service contract is much as it always was. You can find a highlighted copy in the folder we'll give you when I've finished.
I don't see why we have to have a new one at all. In fact, the
old service contract simply isn't flexible enough.
Not the service contract. I don't see why we need to have this new C11.
Oh.
He got that wrong. Always let the questioner finish. Don't jump the gun.
What's wrong with the current one?
You want to know what's wrong with the current one?
Yeah.
Well, I know there's a few people here who would enjoy telling you at length what's wrong with it.
Yes,
we could tell you. This thing's just been foisted on us.
Well, those from the pilot group would say that it hasn't been foisted on them at all, that they're fed up of being consulted and questioned.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. Well, it's certainly come out of the blue.
I've got a question I want to ask straight away.
Yes, Mr. Tyndall.
Why did it all take so long?
He asked why it had taken so long.
Yes.
What a terrible question to get thrown at you. I mean, Jim had hardly started.
But you can't ignore things just because they're awkward. You've got to reply or you're not communicating. But you can give yourself a few moments of thinking time by repeating the question.
Why has it taken so long? That's a good question. I mean, the short answer is difficulties with patents. I'll be delighted to give you a full account later, Mr. Tyndall, when we have a coffee. Two things before I bring you up to date on the launch itself.
So what exactly was the problem with the patents?
I've said I'd give Mr. Tyndall a detailed account of the delays, Mr. Chairman.
Look, Brian, now we'll never get through.
I'm sorry to drag you away from your work. Now, you won't be wondering why we're here this afternoon. You know some of what I'm going to say. You've heard all the rumours about the C11. You need to know the facts.
You. It's all about you. She's seeing it from their point of view.